Anarchy is what we're in. A country where we can, our security cannot be guaranteed by the state. Anarchy is where we cannot get employment. Anarchy is where we are paying taxes that are not transparent. A state of anarchy for me is where you're paying taxes that you don't even know where they come from. A state of anarchy is where you have a cabinet that is being cast that is completely incapable, that has got integrity issues. For me, anarchy is where courts are making judgments and rulings that cannot be defended. That for me is a state of anarchy. But when these young people are going out there to demand the rule of law and to demand what is this called transparency and accountability, they are turned into anarchists.
I myself do a critical event debriefing, particularly through a diamond model. And I think it's invaluable in reviewing and reflecting on the event like what happened today. This process allows us to strengthen our future initiatives. I think it drives a meaningful change. It's okay to feel down and frustrated, but let's use this feeling to fuel progress. While some might believe that the demonstrations were losing momentum and will soon fade away, this is just a moment of calm before the bigger storm. The regime will revert to its old way very soon. Having said that, I'm not a Christian but a student of theology. But I want to address the president and his allies through their spiritual lens. As we continue with the political discourse, Kenya is a nation that has long aspired to divine guidance. And many of us hoped that this administration, which came to power, partly invoking the name of the Lord, will lead us towards prosperity and moral governance. Yet here we are, reflecting on the book of Lamentation, witnessing not the promised blessing, but rather a deepening period of hardship and sorrow. This is where we are from their prayer perspective. Having said that, as we move beyond the nane, it's crucial to build on the momentum and insight gained. We must forge for a stronger connection, address emerging challenges, implement actionable strategies. The lessons learned from this event are not just reflection, but a guiding principles for a future endeavor. This is my view. And always, power belongs to the people, and they can exercise directly or through their elected leaders. Unfortunately, many of our elected leaders have betrayed this trust, creating a system that serves a few privileged while ignoring majority. Everyone desires a change, but achieving it requires more than a mere demand. It necessitates courage, commitment, passion, and even when the odds seems overwhelming. I would say this: the political landscape is shifting. While the president may be focused on suppressing protest, we must stay steadfast in advocating for a peaceful, democratic solutions that serve the broader good. So I would say change begins with unity. We must come across ethnic, social, and economic lines to form a collective form that cannot be ignored. Our combined power and voice can push for necessary reforms and challenge the status quo that has perpetuated inequality and injustice. The retreat to the tribalism and the Mutietu syndrome undermines this unity. The other thing I want to talk to is about empowering the youth. It's a crucial. They represent the future and pose the energy, the creativity, determination needed for a transformation. Prioritizing their political education, economic opportunities, and political engagement will ensure they are equipped to lead this country towards a better future. I think the other thing is also about the use of social media platforms to spread message, mobilize support, maintain pressure on the political class, and use citizen journalism like the one we are doing now. The other thing that has come to me is I was thinking dialogue is insufficient, especially with a regime that has shown dishonesty in regards to a meaningful engagement. We must continue non-violent protest, explore all avenues, both on the street, through legal means, to express our discontent, challenge irregularities within the legal system. Engaging with the civil society organizations and genuine politicians, an international body will help build consensus and support for the next steps. The current leadership seeks peace not for the benefit of people, but to continue with their oppression in silence. To counter this, we should consider holding new elections, leaders who genuinely represent and serve people. It's crucial to ensure that everyone gets their ID, voter card, actively participate in the election process. This is one of the things also I will advocate. We should still hold them accountable, not just through the ballot, but in every aspect of governance. We still ask for transparency, integrity, adherence to the rule of law must be non-negotiable. Change will be challenging. With determination, unity, and unwavering resolve, we can transform Kenya into a nation that truly serves all its people. The journey will be demanding, but one must undertake it together. Time for change is now, and each one has the role of making it happen. Finally, I will agree with one of the speakers who said, truly politics stirs strong emotions, overshadowing a logical discourse. The intense feeling can evoke sometimes cloud reasons, making it difficult to have a constructive and rational conversation. This emotional charge can be polarized and hinder search for a common ground.
First of all, I want to say that there is nothing like failure. A war is a series of battles. Some you win, some you lose. It is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And I've been trying to tell some of these young people I join in the spaces at 3-4 o'clock in the morning that they must not be impatient. I think this is a generation of cell phones, instant messaging, people who do not know that you can actually light a fire to warm your food and write a letter and wait for a month for it to be delivered to your boyfriend in Nairobi school and wait for another month for it to return. So there is nothing instant about this thing, but there's so many things that they have achieved so quickly, and I cannot even begin to say, because I've written about 15 of them, and I keep reminding them all the time in all their spaces that there's so many things that they have done right. But I think one of the things I observed today, actually two things I observed very closely today. The police were given a very clear brief. Do not let them associate at all. Literally, they were scattered as quickly as possible. The minute 2 people, 3 people assembled, immediately they were dispersed. This is Moi's playbook. I'm a Gen X, I think. So I remember what Moi used to do those days. You could not even seat 5 people in a room. And that's how I think Kenyans started meeting in their homes, because the freedom of association was completely not allowed those days. And I can see this playing itself out today. The police had their number very quickly, and they were not ready for it. That's the number one, which it means that we are working with somebody who is willing to suspend the Bill of Rights very quickly. And I actually had written an opinion piece a while ago, before he even called the army out in the streets, that he was going to invoke Section 58, which is the Declaration of Emergency. And I just think he fell short of doing it because the Constitution could not allow him to do it. But if he could have done it, he would have done it. But the way that he's behaving with the police right now is basically suspending the Bill of Rights. Freedom of association, freedom of expression, arbitrary arrests, those are all suspension of constitutional rights. That is the one thing I observed, and we need to be careful about that. The second thing that I observed today is beating up business people, basically turning the business community against the protesters. So what does that mean? It is basically turning our protesters into, calling them anarchists, basically delegitimizing the entire movement, making it look like they're the ones who are going to stop you from doing your business. They're the ones who are destroying the economy. It was so obvious. I mean, I saw at some point the police going and literally beating up street vendors. We can see it transparent. It was transparent what they were trying to do. So what does that for me look like? It looks for me as if the formless, the leaderlessness, that has been turned into so-called anarchy. Of course, we know what anarchy is in Kenya today. Anarchy is what we're in. A country where we can, our security cannot be guaranteed by the state. Anarchy is where we cannot get employment. Anarchy is where we are paying taxes that are not transparent. A state of anarchy for me is where you're paying taxes that you don't even know where they come from. A state of anarchy is where you have a cabinet that is being cast that is completely incapable, that has got integrity issues. For me, anarchy is where courts are making judgments and rulings that cannot be defended. That for me is a state of anarchy. But when these young people are going out there to demand the rule of law and to demand what is this called transparency and accountability, they are turned into anarchists. So that is one thing I noticed. So what happens then? What is my suggestion or some of the conversations I was having with my friends today? I think we do need to retreat and reorganize. The lack of messaging, the lack of coherence in the messaging, I think has been a bit of an Achilles heel in this movement. And I am not asking for us to necessarily have one leader. I don't know how it's going to look like, but I think we do need some centers of command. When I look at how certain battles, when I look at, I live in South Africa, so, and I came here when the interim constitution was being negotiated when I was studying law at University of Cape Town. The way it was, the way the Umkhonto we Sizwe fought the war was around centers of command so that they can mitigate against the risk of having one sellout or two sellouts, because any liberation struggle is going to have sellouts. Let's agree. We've seen it. I've seen it on social media. We've seen people selling out. It is just something that we have to live with. But when you have centers of command and you're able to very quickly identify who are the people with integrity and who don't, I think that for me is important so that you can have a sort of a messaging that is coherent and a plan. I don't know how that looks like because we are all very scattered out there. I think for me, without a sort of a political organization, a political organization perhaps also legitimizes the movement a little bit because it allows you to organize without being called anarchists. Because for now, we are anarchists because we don't have an umbrella body that brings us together. So perhaps if we can either form a political organization or ally ourselves with a political organization that believes in what we believe, meaning building a Kenya that works for everybody, a Kenya that actually delivers for all 58 million shareholders, a Kenya where it doesn't matter who the president is, it doesn't matter who the vice president is, it doesn't matter who the cabinet minister is. What it means is that we've got just leaders who go and deliver for Kenya, where we're not fighting for positions. That Kenya where I can sit in a restaurant and the president is eating next door, doesn't need a motorcade. That Kenya that we are all, I think that not only the youth of Kenya, everybody wants to build. If we can have that kind of an organization and all rally behind it and we give it legitimacy, it means when we go and associate, we don't become anarchists. We've got some sort of legitimacy to get together. And when we get together, we don't get dispersed. And I have got some ideas because I've been listening to Professor Kibuda. I have been listening to Dr. Akuro Court. And I think there are values that we do share, that we do have a vision of the kind of Kenya. And I think that there are organizations already that exist and that we can stand on the shoulders of giants who have walked before us and that we can get experience from them, because I truly believe that there are leaders amongst us that actually have that experience and that have got that vision for a Kenya, and that we can get these young people to stand on their shoulders and light the torch so that we can be able to build this Kenya without reinventing the wheel. We don't have to go back to scratch, but I think this movement does need some sort of legitimacy and some centers of command. That is one thing. Now, the other thing was the civic education. Somebody mentioned something about civic education, and I agree with it. It needs to go to grassroots level. And any messaging, if you look at marketing, the way you sell Coca-Cola in America, the same Coca-Cola, you have to sell it in Kenya in a different with a different message. And in Kenya, you sell it in Nairobi with a different message, and in Kiambu with a different message. Now, let me give you an example. My mom is a boomer. She's 76 years old. She didn't understand at the beginning why all this noise was about until I went and told her about land. And I told her about seeds. And I told her age mates who are 80 years old, and I told them, do you realize that it's going to be illegal for you to share your seeds? That one day your land is not going to be your land. You'll be selling, you'll be paying tax, you'll be paying rent. And that immediately, I didn't have to tell them about so many stories. I just picked up one story and I told them, your seeds, the seeds that Shosho used to plant, that she used to plant into maize and into beans. Oh my goodness, we can't do that anymore. You mean we can't plant our traditional seeds? And you mean our ancestral land is not going to be ours anymore? That got them going. And what did my mom and her age mates do? They went and converted the whole church. And they said, that's why these kids are fighting. So they understood, but I took that message that I knew they would hear, and I went to them, and before I knew it, the entire church was listening. So I agree with civic education. It needs to be altered, but we just need to pick up one or two very specific messages and go and talk to their pain points in their language, into what they want, what we believe they will hear. If you start talking to them about things that are out there, decolonization agenda, I don't know, sijui what, open border policy, they will not hear it. I think for me, those are the big things that I've picked up. And I think the other thing, Jelani, if you don't mind, if I just make one more point, the infighting has been ridiculous on social media, divide and rule. You know, it's creating rivalry and creating competition amongst people who are all fighting against the same enemy. We went colonial 101. I could see that these centers of power that have been created amongst us, we are all fighting the enemy called Ruto and the administration. And for me, when I see Ruto, I see an administration. I see a post-colonial institution that was created to keep on the relations of power and going by keeping us colonized through a very small minority of very wealthy Africans that has been propagated from Kenyatta 1 all the way till now. We are fighting that institution. Then I saw social media people fighting against each other, and then one person starts something and then they start fighting. Then we all lose focus. Then we lose focus that we're fighting one person, and then what do those government bloggers do? They come, they vurugana. It's like you take a jar, it's got ants in there, and then you shake it. But the person who's shaking the jar is on the outside, and then the ants start fighting inside. We lose focus. It's called creating competition, and it's called creating rivalry. And then you start, picking out people from the outside, and you start making them superiors to others. Guys, all these things are just separating us. So if we can find a way of mobilizing each other and kind of just finding consensus that we have all fighting one enemy, and then perhaps bring all these groups of all of us who know we believe in the same thing that we believe into one umbrella, create many centers of power but we have one centralized message, perhaps we could be moving forward. But I agree with Brother Kibwana, this is not a sprint, it is a marathon. We are going to get there, and we have come a long way very quickly. I'm not discouraged. I am excited. And we just need to figure out how to put some legitimacy into this movement